Ship Happens, the show where crew tell their experiences of working on cruise ships, hosted by Jimmy Crew and Jolly Roger.
Hey, Jimmy. What's going on? How are you?
I'm doing great. How's it going over there? Back home now, I guess, right?
Back home. Yes, we're on the land. Just to be to say it officially, right? We're not on the ship at the moment, but we spent a lot of years on the cruise ships specifically, right? With passengers, and this is very popular. Like in the last few decades, I want to say. Am I correct? Like in the U.S., how popular it is in this
I mean,
cruising and
I'm from South Florida, so I mean, here it's considered the cruise capital of the world, Miami in
right.
particular. So we have three great ports here in South Florida, Port Everglades here in Fort Lauderdale, and also in Miami we have Miami, the Port of Miami. So it's definitely the hub of cruise ships from all over the world. So I could say it's probably one of the most popular things to do for the guests here, but as well as internationally. So. I spent
Oh
5 years
yes,
working on cruise ships, and I left right before the pandemic. So I guess I could say I got lucky
same
because I left
here.
right in 2019. How many years did you work?
Well, I worked, I want to say like 6 or 7 years all in total, but I had like a break for like a year and a half because I worked for different cruise ships, different cruise lines, sorry. And
Oh,
so I
okay.
had like a little bit of break. So maybe like, I want to say 6 years, 6 years total on the ships.
6 years totals on ships. All right. And when exactly did you start, or what year did you start?
Oh God, I don't remember. It was 2014 or something. That's why I want. That's why I was asking. Like, when did this was already like we had like thousands of ships and numerous cruise lines. But as far as I remember from the stories, this wasn't like back in the 80s and 90s. This wasn't as popular as like now in the last 2 decades, right? Am I right?
But yeah, that's right. That's right. And actually, as a matter of fact, like when I hear stories when I started working on cruise ships of how it was back in the days, and I mean before, I
Oh
mean from
yes.
what I hear, there wasn't even HR on board. So people that have been working with the company for 10, 20 years, maybe even more. I mean, they tell the stories of how it was before, and
It was
and
kind of
uh,
like
I, if-
I heard those stories. It was kind of like a wild west back there. Like
it
you
was
people were.
Wild Wild West. But
Mm,
even for me, like when I hear those stories and what the experience that I had in the 5 years that I worked on board was still like the Wild Wild West. I mean, it was incredible. But I can't imagine working 10, 15 years ago when it was really anything goes. But
yeah, did you know that people were like allowed to smoke everywhere on the ships? Like there was like smoking. Well, the entire ship was like
I heard
smoking
stories
area.
about, and this we're talking about crew in particular, because guests obviously they can do whatever they want, but the crew were allowed to like smoke in public, even drink in public. I mean, like nothing really mattered. I mean, it was just, hey,
Oh
you made
yes.
it to work, okay? You didn't make it. It's like, okay, let's get somebody else to cover for this guy that's passed out in the hallway in the guest area, and you just think like, where was HR? It's like, oh, there was an HR. It was pretty much
No, there
anything
wasn't.
goes back in the days.
Even myself, I can share this story. When I'm back in, I think I want to say 2014, when I first
Hmm.
started, I started in on Royal Caribbean. Actually, that was my first ship,
Okay.
and based from Miami, and I was the maybe I was the last generation of sailors that was allowed to smoke in the cabins, in their cabins.
Wow.
We had like open area where you have music and parties, and it was officially smoking area. But I joined in end of May 2014, and when I joined the ship, you were allowed to smoke in your cabin, in the bathroom actually, if
Oh
your
my God.
roommate, because you share your cabins, most of the people on the ships, they share their cabins, if your roommate doesn't mind. And I did.
Wow.
And like I was a month and a half in the contract, and then they just announced, okay, in 2 weeks there's going to be this new rule where there's no smoking at all anywhere besides this one smoking area on the ship. And so I was actually there. I think I caught the last wave of this smoking, and but I heard the stories. The people like just it was much more relaxed back then. But hopefully,
Oh,
maybe
I
we
can
can
imagine.
in some of the future episodes we can have like one of the old crew members that were like with the ships for like
Yeah,
25
I would love to
years, so
hear
they can
from
share. Oh yeah.
somebody else. one of the veterans that's been, and I think I know a few
Oh
people,
yeah.
and I'm sure you do as well, that
Mm.
have been with the company from 10, 15 years, and they started from waiting or from housekeeping, and they moved up to cruise directors, to hotel directors even.
Oh
It's
yeah.
an incredible, it's incredible to hear stories of other crew members and how they started from nothing. And some people, they like the position that they're in, and they stay there for ages. I know
Oh, I know
bartenders,
those as well.
that,
Yes.
oh,
They don't want to
they
move.
never move. They're like, they get
They don't want
promoted,
to.
promoted, and they decline because obviously they love
Yes.
that job, and that's how it is. But we would love to hear from some of those in the
And
near future.
I met a guy that didn't want to retire as well, because once you hit, I think by the law, but once you hit 64 years old, you have to retire. I mean, you cannot work on the ships anymore. And I
Wow.
remember this one story. This one guy, they're like this crew, um, how do you say, administration, right? They were like chasing him
Uh-huh.
around the ship, with 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 the contract
At
to
64,
sign.
at
Yeah, yeah.
64 you had to chase them.
And he didn't want to sign, and he didn't want to sign the paper that he need, this is his last contract, and this is your last contract, you cannot come back.
Wow.
And he just refused to that, and then was an HR involved. Even Miami office was
So
involved,
did you have to
that.
take his cane so he couldn't run
And
away anymore?
it was he but he was working for with the company for like 30 years or even more. And that's
Oh
the life
yeah,
he
wow.
knew. He doesn't know the life, on the land you just go for vacation, right? So he didn't know
Right.
how to act, how to behave on the land, I guess.
Yeah, and that's
So
something we
this
can
was
also
his
talk
life.
about too, of how it is adjusting back on land and adjusting on board,
Oh
so
yeah.
that's something really
Apparently
interesting
heavy
for
for
people
some
that.
people.
Oh yes, absolutely, because that's all they know. They're used to the good life. I mean, for some,
It is
and
kind
the
of
money. Yeah,
spoiled life. Yep,
it's
yep.
addictive. It's addictive in a way, and then but
Very
also,
much.
it's hard to come back to reality. Especially during this pandemic, a lot of people realized, what it's like to not be on board, and how you have to, like, make money back on land. So a lot of people decided not to go back on ships because they found out, they're like, you know what, I can still work here on land and make a living and not
Yeah.
rely on working on cruise ships.
Yeah, we're going to talk about perks on living on the ship. This is very interesting
Hmm.
topic. I hope in one of our episodes we're gonna cover this in more detail, like what is like, how you kind of being pampered, if you agree with me, like the people making a bed for you and making food for you, and you don't pay
Yeah.
anything, and they clean for you, and it's like,
And again, for some, because there's some fortunate ones that you have on ships. You have what's crew and staff. The staff have more privileges than the
right.
crew have. Uh,
But
However,
still,
they
you
try to
you don't
keep
have
an
to cook. I mean,
equal.
the only thing with
Oh
crew, the
yeah, exactly.
difference
For
was
crew
was
and
like,
yeah,
we're changing, I don't know, bed sheets or something. But still, I mean, you don't have to cook. You don't have to clean behind
right,
yourself. You don't
right.
have to do anything. I mean, this is very, like, you get spoiled very easily there. At least I do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, not cooking, being able to just not worry about like bills back home. Well, I mean, besides what you send home, but
Oh yeah,
on board, there's no expenses if you don't want to spend any money. So it does create some sort of attachment to that, or
a bubble.
oh yeah, exactly. So, but let me ask you, Jolly. Let's start with
Okay.
you. I mean, we actually, I didn't know that you started in 2014 with cruise ships, because I actually started right in 2014. I think it was, actually, I remember the date almost to this day. It was March 28, 29 of 2019.
Hmm.
I don't know if you remember when you started.
2019. I think you made a mistake. 2019 you start.
2014. I'm sorry.
14. Yes, yes,
No, I
yes.
started. Sorry, sorry, sorry.
No,
Yes.
May.
So
It
we
was May
both
for me.
started in 2014.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. So I started a couple months before you.
Yeah, yeah, and then I think we left the ships at the same time. Like, it was, what year was it for you?
2019. It was May actually. No, no. I completed my 5 year. I remember because I was nervous that I wasn't gonna be able to leave after my 5 year anniversary. So that was the one thing
Hmm.
that I
Did you
remember that
get your pin?
actually I did get my pin. So
Nice.
uh, you get a certain award after every 5 years milestones.
Right.
With
This
Carnival,
is
for
for one
example, you
specific.
get a pin.
Yeah, yeah. This is for them specifically. Yeah, yeah.
For,
For
yeah,
this one
for each
cruise line.
company, each cruise line has a specific award or ceremony depending on how many years you work with the company.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really, really excited to get my pin, and nervous at the time that I wasn't gonna get it. So I actually left. I got to March 28th, I believe. That's when I got my pin, and I left shortly, probably a couple of weeks after that.
This is
So
funny. I
I
mean,
was like,
you
it
actually
was a
waited
relief.
for that pin.
I
That's
mean,
funny.
I just like to close circles, in a perfect circle. It's not like I
Okay.
left
Do you
two
like
years or
round
just did one
numbers?
contract.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, as weird as that sounds, but yes. But how did you hear about cruise ships, or
uh,
what made you
okay,
interested
let's
on working on ships?
okay. Let's start from that. And there's so many things we have to talk about, and I hope all guys that listen to us, they're gonna like it, and they're gonna come back for each episode. We have a lot of stories to share. But
Mhm.
I actually started in I never I didn't want to. I have to be honest. My first time I went, away from home, from my country, was I went to England, to UK, and then I worked. And my friend of mine, my best friend, he kind of persuaded me, and because he really wanted to travel. And I was like, when you're a kid, you always dream about, I don't know about you, but me was, it's France or Italy, or you go Spain, or I don't know, some exotic place,
Right.
warm place. And then you never think like, oh, I can't wait to go to England, right? And then it was like London was not even on my top 15 list of cities I want to visit. And
Same.
there was this opportunity, and then it was a show, like it was I was still in college. We were students, so there was like this program that you go, you work and travel, and then you study. You kind of study English in London. You go to school for like a few weeks, and then they find you a job in some hotel that you work, and then you come back after, I
It
don't know,
looks like you
5 months.
passed. It looks like you passed your English classes.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, my English very it was much more, UK and English before the ships. And
Oh, that's
I used
terrible.
to say, like can't and water instead of water.
Wha-
So this is my English. We really was
Improved.
up and down, up and okay,
Don't
you
tell
can
don't
call it
tell the
like that.
Brits. Don't tell the Brits.
So and anyway, I met this guy back. So I went to Scotland, so I worked there in a hotel for like 6 months. So I met this guy there. He was Hungarian guy, and then he shared his story because he worked on the ships, on the cruise ships. But this was like 2000, I want to say like 2005 or something. It was a long time ago. And then he didn't like it, and he shared these stories how it's like very difficult, and you work 7 days a week, and you have no rest time, and you have no this, and it's terrible, and you don't want to work on a cruise ship. Uh, and this is the only time I heard about the cruise ships, and that you there is even job opportunities in that section. So I finished with that. I came back home. I found a job, and this, blah, the time goes by, and the same friend, he still didn't, he still wanted to travel. So he find this. He's like, why don't we go to the cruise ships? And so I share with him. I'm like, listen, this guy told me it's not good. It's terrible. I don't want to work this much, and like you share rooms with like 4 or 5 people, which was the case in like 30 years ago,
Some
20 years
companies.
ago, with some companies. I mean, and even on that Royal Caribbean, my first ship, it was like the oldest ship in the fleet that I started on. They had cabins with 4 people in it.
Oh my
And
gosh.
oh yes, and so these were true stories, but again, depends on your character and what you're looking for. So some people don't
Your
like it, some people
position.
like it, of course. And so I said no. So this friend of mine, he keeps, every few months he was like, oh, but let's try, there's this agency. So we went to this agency, and I didn't like it. He didn't like it either, what they were giving us. So we kind of, put a stop on that. And then a few years later, he met this guy, and he was working for recruiting for photographers on the ships.
Mhm.
And so he told us that we didn't know what crew means, what stuff means, like you don't know this ship terminology. And he said, okay, you guys, as photographers, you're staff members, so you have these privileges and blah blah. So I don't want to get into. So anyway, I accept. I'm like, okay, let's do it, even though I never hold camera in my life, I was not a photographer.
They didn't ask you for your qualifications at all?
No, God knows. I mean, you know better. You don't need any qualification on the ship. I mean, you need personality, you need to be hardworking, and you need good English. And I
Or like
had
we
all
say,
that.
you fake it, like we say, fake it till you make it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you either made for a job or not. So my personality was outgoing, and my English was good enough. And so yeah,
You
they're
were
like,
Jolly
yeah,
Roger.
I am Jolly Roger, and they accepted me, and then I went to my first ship, and so the rest is history, and there's a lot of things to talk about. But you share your story. I'm very curious to see how people from US. I mean, I understand people from around the world. You know, this is a golden opportunity for us, but I'm not sure how people from US get to the ships. This is not as
Well,
golden as for us. Am I right?
no, 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 and like for me, for example, like I live in Fort Lauderdale, and I'm from Fort Lauderdale, so I grew up watching the cruise ships leave from the port of Port Everglades or even Miami when we used to go down there. But I mean, it never really interested me, or never even have an idea of what cruising was, because my family never really liked cruise ships or ever thought about going on a cruise ship. So I would
Right,
just see
right.
them leave, and I'm like, why would somebody go on that little boat? Because you see them at the distance, at the horizon, and you never really think what's going on board. Even though it's a massive, massive ship, it's a floating city basically. So yeah, a few years after, I used to work in hotels, and I wanted to work for tourism here in Florida, but that fell through. And then I had applied for a few things. I just like, I need to get away. I want to start traveling and just get away from home for a little bit, right? So a friend of mine
Right,
from
right.
from South Florida told me that he worked on board as guest services, and he said, "Man, it's
Hmm.
it's very stressful." But he told me all the negative, or the cons about it, but also the positive things. Like you meet a lot of people from all over the world, and it's very high pace and intense and whatnot. So I said, you know what? Let me just try it. I'll just do it for a contract, because obviously for Americans, the money is the same as crew from other countries, that their dollar goes a lot further than here in the US, especially in South Florida, that's so expensive. So I
Much
said, like,
much
no,
more.
no, no, I just
Yeah.
want exactly, so I said, you know what? I don't care about the money. I just want the experience. I didn't even know how much I was going to get paid. I just sent my application, and I had a friend, of course, that knew somebody here in the US. It's who you know, right? So I had a friend that talked to a friend, and next thing you know, like, my resume was in the hands of the person in charge of hiring people for the guest services position, right? So I went to the
Hmm.
interview in Miami. The guy was like, "Are you sure you want?" He was a little bit hesitant, because he said, like, "Listen, I see you have a business degree. You have all this background working for hotels and whatnot. Like, are you sure you want to work on ships? Because you're going to be sharing a room, and there's all this stuff. Kind of."
But
He made it sound almost like
you never even cruised before that as a
I
guest?
never set foot on a
Oh
ship
God.
ever as a guest. Like I said, to me, a ship was like a little floating thing. I was like, I used to see him, and I've been on boats like my
Wow.
whole life. Because my friends have boats or yachts or whatever. So you like, okay, this is a small thing. Even when you get on a big, like a mega yacht, that we have the Fort
I
Lauderdale
never been on a small
boat
boat.
show actually happening right now. And I was able to visit some of the ships. I'm like, oh, and I met some of the crew, but on a crew on a yacht, it's a little bit different. Once I was able to compare it, because I mean, it's a small crew of like 6 to 15 crew members, and I'm like, oh man, this kind of doesn't appeal to me, because
Hmm.
it's such a small place to work. However, like I said, I didn't know how it was like to work on cruise ships or
Where
ever.
did you join? In Miami? Your first ship? Where
Yes,
did
my
you
first
join?
trip was in Miami,
Mm-hmm.
and funny thing is, so after I had applied, I had other jobs that I had applied for, and I met one of the guys that I was supposed to be working with, and he said, "Hey, listen, I heard you applied for Carnival, and listen, I would take that position, because the experience you're gonna get from there is unbelievable." And I said, "Okay, so maybe that's a sign that I should probably take it, because." I was a little bit hesitant, with the way they explained the ship life was, and how tough it was at some points. So I said, you know
Mm-hmm.
what, I'll just do it for one contract, which is usually 6 months. It could be longer, but I said, like, no, I don't care about the money. I don't care about the living. I just want the experience, and it's good to have in your resume that you worked on a cruise ship, right? No matter what
Mm-hmm.
position you
Oh
took. I mean,
yes. Well,
and in fact, now that I know
it's
what it's
supposed to
like
be.
now that I know what it's like to work on cruise ships, my dream is to open up a hotel, maybe like a little boutique hotel, and I would only hire people to work on cruise ships because they are the hardest working people in the hospitality industry, in my opinion.
Yeah,
But
everything
that's
after
just me,
ships is like
because
vacation, right? When you
it,
come back, I mean, you work. People, I mean,
oh
if
yes,
anybody's listening who
any
who
other
who never
job back
been on the
home,
ship,
it's a piece of cake. Absolutely, yeah.
yeah, well, first of all, you
So
work seven
any
days a week,
invitation,
right? It's like there's no
yeah, you have no
weekends.
days off.
There's no like when I remember when guests asked me, oh, like we have schedule, and it's like on Wednesday we are, like, or guests ask me like on Wednesday we are in Key West. I'm like, Wednesday, like,
Yeah,
I'm
what's a
sorry, man,
Wednesday?
but I'm not sure which
Your
day of the
days
week it is. Yeah,
turn into ports, it's like,
yeah,
"Oh, what are you
yeah.
doing Cozumel? What are you
Yeah,
doing, Puerto
it's a
Rico?"
Cozumel
Like, you don't
day.
even
It's
know what
Puerto
day it
Rico
is.
day. Yeah, you
Yeah.
don't have Sundays and
Like
Saturdays.
a Sunday is usually Miami or Fort Lauderdale or whatever US home port
Depends
you have,
on the length of
so
the cruise, right? Right. My first ship was three or
absolutely,
four
yes.
days, and no, no.
Oh,
Listen,
okay.
what I wanna know. What was my impression? Like when you first uh, approach the ship, your first ship, right? And you joining the ship, it's your first contract, and
Oh,
you
yes.
walk to that pier, and you
Oh my gosh.
see the ship. Like I remember that, like it was like a building, it was like a wall in front of me. I
Yes,
don't even
yes.
like. I'm like, is this even a ship? What? And it was the smallest ship in the fleet, my ship,
So,
and it
Jolly,
was so
you had
huge.
never stepped foot on a ship as well, right? You never
Not
been
even
on a
on a
ship or
boat.
a
Like
big.
in my country, we don't even
Wow.
have ocean or sea.
Oh, shit, yeah,
We
I
have
know.
rivers and lakes. That's it. So I was
Wow.
like, never. And
So when you
yeah,
saw this
it,
massive
it's
building that's
huge.
floating and you
You
stepped on
don't
board,
even
what
know
was your
you
first
no
feeling?
no no you forget that it floats. First of all, I mean, you when you walk in, like you walk into the building, and I didn't even see the water. I didn't even see anything. I just walked into the ship, and then immediately the drill starts. Your manager takes over, and they show you to your cabin, and everything looks like a hay maze, or like something is so confusing, and you traveled and you have no idea what's going on.
So
And
when you walked onto the ship, I mean, who welcomed you as soon as you walked in? I
uh,
mean, how was it for Royal?
to be honest, I was the one, like most of most of the years on the ship. I was the one whose job, as I was part of the HR department, and my part of my job
Ouch.
was to greet the new crew members. It was like every home port and every port, to greet and to introduce them and to train them,
So
and it
your own
was
people welcomed you. So
my
your first
own
job, I thought it was
people.
photo.
But I honestly don't remember. I was under such a big impression about and confused about everything, that it was such an experience I cannot even describe. But I have to share this funny story, because then you walk in, and they give you uniform, and then like immediately that same day,
Right.
there's no rest day. Like you show your uniform, and
Yeah,
then they
you
take you.
go, here's your
You
uniform,
start
go to work.
working. Yeah, you start working. Like
Immediately.
there's no training,
Absolutely.
there's nothing. So but you start we as a I was a photographer, and then we before we set sail, we before the ship goes off, we already in our uniforms, in our positions, to start selling or do whatever we do there. And I remember it was like a photo gallery, like a big space, carpets and all this. It was,
Mhm.
to me, it was like the most luxurious thing ever I ever saw. And then later I
Yeah.
realized it was like it was the crappiest
It
ship
was the
of
worst one.
all.
I
Yeah,
same with me. I got the smallest, oldest ship on the
yeah.
fleet, and for me, it was like, "Man, this is like
Oh
5
yes.
stars," it's
Oh yeah.
huge. And then I saw the other ship, and I was mind blown. But so you came on board, and
Oh no,
immediately they
I
gave you your
no,
room key?
yeah, no, no. I was with my roommate took me, to the photo gallery. So we standing there, and then I starting to feel like dizzy, right? And I'm thinking,
Oh,
God, and I start to go over my head, like, have I eat? I didn't eat, and I remember I didn't eat that whole day, because all this excitement and the
nervous and
offer,
traveling,
nervous.
yes.
So, and then I feel fine. And then again, I start feeling like the room is floor is moving and everything is like, I'm like, and I approach to my roommate, which I just met like few hours before that. And I'm like, oh
I'm gonna
God,
pass out.
I think I'm gonna faint. I think I'm gonna pass out. Like I feel like the room is moving. And he's like,
Ah,
yeah, for sure,
rookie.
because we're sailing. Like the ship is
Of
moving.
course,
I'm like,
yeah.
oh
And it's
God,
literally
this
moving, yeah.
It's literally moving, and this is my first. And I remember I was so scared that I'm gonna embarrass myself, by passing out on my first day on work, and it was actually the
Ah,
ship. But the funny thing is, I don't know, I'm sure this is most of the people experience, like, like 2 hours in, you'd never feel it again. I mean, you so get used to it so quickly that you don't
right.
feel the ship moving,
Hmm.
right? It's like you're on
Hmm.
land, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I was used to being on boats and yachts like since I was a kid. So for me it wasn't that I didn't feel that much of an impact, but I did as soon as I set foot on the ship. I was like, "Oh, it is moving," because well, funny story for me.
Mm-hmm.
My funny story was that because I live in Fort Lauderdale, my parents took me to the ship in Miami, which is like about 20-30 minutes from where I live.
Wow.
So I woke up late, and they told me like, "Oh yeah." The only question I asked, because once I got hired, I mean, and this is because I've never been cruising. I mean, now you know that what times to get there and whatnot. Um,
Right.
but I was like, "Oh, the ship leaves at 3 o'clock. Oh, we have plenty of time." So I got up, we had breakfast, I took a nap, I finished packing whatever. I mean, I was taking my good time, right? Because I know like
Oh,
most of the 90% of the crew are flying in from like all over the world, or taking the bus in the morning to get to the ship, or getting picked
oh.
up to get to
As a
the ship.
part of
So
HR, we didn't like people like you, but I'm sorry,
ah,
but yeah.
oh, I got
Like,
other stories about that too, which I'll tell you
oh
later
yeah,
about
yeah. Like
when
we
I was
want to
finally in
done.
a ship out of Fort
Most of the
Lauderdale.
crew, join like all together, like 9 p.m., 9 a.m. or something. And then
Yes.
after we process all the crew, we're done for
Ooh.
that morning, so we have a chance to go out. And
Oh,
then
so
but
we would delay you.
there's oh yeah, there's always some local people, right? From
Oof,
that
not pointing fingers.
yeah, yeah,
No, so
and
listen
they,
to this. So listen to this.
okay,
So
okay.
we're driving down there, and I left my house like at 2 p.m., right?
Mm-hmm.
2 p.m. The ship leaves at 3 o'clock, but now I know that crew back on board, or like the last guest on board, is at 2:30 p.m., right? If you come
Right,
after 2:30, you're in trouble, right?
right,
So again, I took my sweet time. I left at 2 o'clock. Oh, we have plenty of time. It's only 30 minutes. The ship leaves at 3. They're not gonna leave without me, right? You're thinking. Uh and again, because I've never been on a cruise, and I know the ship leaves people all the time. So I get a phone call around 2:15. No, actually, I get to Miami and I forgot, and it was a Friday. And that weekend we have a big, big festival. It's one of the biggest house festivals in the world,
oh
and it's
crap.
called Ultra Music Festival. So
Oh,
it's a big
the
event that
traffic.
lasts for a week. So the traffic when I got
Mm.
to the causeway that goes to the port, to the terminal, it was out of this world. I mean, there were people setting up. I was stuck at a light for about another 15 minutes, right?
Oh
And the
god.
police officer was looking at me and just stopping traffic. And I kind of poked my head out and it's like, listen, I need to join that ship. I'm going to be late. And they kinda, like, waved me through. It's like, "Okay, go, whatever," and, I was already it was already 2:35 or 2:40, and I started getting phone calls from the ship, from HR, of course,
Right.
your people. They're like, "Hey, Manny, just making sure you're gonna join the ship today. Today is the day you have to start working." I was like, "Oh, yeah, the thing is, like, there's a concert, and they wouldn't let me pass, but I'm already here in the tunnel to get to the port." So they're like, okay. So I get there at literally about 2:50, 10 minutes before sailing, and I have my big bag. Now, mind you, anytime I join a job, I'm like wearing like either a suit or dressed up like a business attire. So I
Oh,
showed
what
up
did
like
you
in
wear? Oh god.
I was wearing a dress shirt, slacks, shoes, like all this, like ready for like
Oh, oh,
a
oh
business
god.
job or whatever, right? So I'm
That's
walking there
funny.
with my big luggage and my jacket on my hand, and I'm walking there, and the staff captain, my trainer, and the guest services manager are waiting for me on the pier,
Of
and
course.
literally they're like on the radio saying like, "Okay, this is Manny. Yeah, he's on board. We can leave now." I was like, "Was I the last one?" It's like, "Manny, you were last." I see all the guests like in the balcony. He's like looking at me, like kind of cheering me, like, "Oh, this guy's late, whatever." So I stepped foot on the ship,
Mm-hmm.
and I immediately felt like, "Oh my god, it's moving!" Because obviously they had the thrusters going on,
Because
and
they
there
were
was
waiting for
some
you.
movement already.
You
And I
lazy
was like,
ass.
"Oh my god." Yeah, exactly. So I stepped foot on the ship, and there I met my entire team, the guest services college. I forgot what number it was, like
Oh,
47
you
or
went to
whatever.
college. Oh, I
Exactly. So
forgot. Oh,
for me, as compared to other departments, you have to do training before you get to
I
your
remember
assigned
now.
ship.
Yes,
So on
yes.
this ship, which is the Ecstasy, which is the smallest ship on the fantasy class, which is the smallest class, I walked on the
Mm,
board and I'm like, oh my god, this is massive, right? And I meet all my colleagues that are going to be in my class. And the funny thing is that everybody was saying like, oh, you know what? When you join guest services, it's usually just girls, you know, so you're gonna be surrounded by girls. I'm like, okay, cool. So I step on board and it's 8 guys and 1 girl. I'm like, are you kidding me? You know, but for me, that was the most impressive thing in the
well,
world because
well, that's
I step
karma.
on
You
board and I'm like,
deserve it. I feel like you deserve that.
exactly, yeah, for
Mm.
being late. So anyway, it's 11 of us total, including myself, and I start shaking
Mm,
hands like, "Hi, I'm this guy. I'm from Zimbabwe. I'm from England. I'm from Croatia. I'm from literally every place." And that right off the bat blew my mind. My trainer was from South Africa. The guest services manager was from South
right.
Africa. I'm like, "Oh my God, what is this? Like, this is out of this world. I mean, where in the world can you meet so many people
It is.
in one handshake, you know?" So I set them born like Manny, just go to HR, they're gonna give you a room key. I got my room key. They showed me, escorted me to my room. I left my bags, and lucky for me, since I was the last one, and as you know, you have a roommate. It's usually in pairs. I was number
Right.
11, so I didn't have a roommate at the time. So I walked in, and I had my the cabin to myself. I'm
I
like,
hate you
wow,
so
God,
much
this is
now.
and I know, I know. So for me, I guess my experience it's a lot different than what other people's experience. Because I mean, I got lucky every single time. So I left my bags and I went to again. I joined the group and I missed the safety briefing for crew members that you have to take a video and all this stuff. So I had to do that later on during the day. But for us, it was a little bit more laid back because as soon as you picked up your uniforms and it was the white at that time, it was like the white officer uniform, so it was all white without any epaulets. So, we're all
Right,
excited. Like
right,
the whole entire team was like, "Oh my God, our white uniforms!" Like now we're sailors, right? So they take us out to the sailing at the front of the ship where only crew members are allowed and the guests are above us. So
mm-hmm.
we took like and I have that beautiful picture. It's the whole class and we're sailing out of Miami and I'm like, oh, I'm sure that's where I used to get drunk on the weekends and that's where I threw up like the other day and like, oh, that's my friend's restaurant, so and everybody's like, "Oh, I got you're from here. Like, what are you doing on a ship?" It's like, "Oh, just living
and,
the
and
life,
and
you know."
how did it
So
how did it go? I mean, and how long was the college? 2 weeks or something?
it was 2 weeks, exactly. So the
Right.
college on board, they usually, rotated from ship to ship. So there it was, on the Ecstasy, and it was 2-week, colleges. They used to have it for a month, but then, they, sort of concised it or made it, simplified it and made it for 2 weeks. And after 2 weeks, you get your assigned ship, and they send you all over the US to the 20 ships at the time they used to have.
Right. So you get your
So it's
assignment and your schedule, and then they
you get your
they send
assignment and
you
your
there.
schedule, exactly.
Mm. I'll listen
Yeah,
to this
but
like
for me, yeah, yeah.
on contrary to your story. Like I about college, I completely forgot that because as a photographer, they also had have college. There's few departments in the ship they have
Wait,
colleges,
Photo had a
which
college?
on Royal Caribbean they did, and I'm not sure about on Carnival. Do they have still or something? But back then, when I joined the ship, they have this college. But guess this. So the college wasn't on the ship. The college was 2 weeks in
In
Cozumel.
Cozumel.
Oh God!
I know.
And they
See, so
stay in one
don't
house.
tell me you're jealous about me because I know that the college for some photo they had a
Oh
huge
yeah,
house in
there is.
Cozumel.
No, yeah, that's true. For some people, not me. I went straight to the ship. I never been to college because they were short people, so they couldn't afford to send me to college. So I went straight to the like I never held camera in my life, and I went straight to the ship, and
Wow.
this was my
I mean, sometimes
experience.
that's the best way. Sometimes that's the best way because
Yeah, right.
you jump in the
Yeah.
fire and you learn the hard way, but it's
Oh yeah,
also the
I'm so
best way
lucky I
because
missed that freaking Cozumel, right? 2 weeks,
I
right?
know,
I
yeah,
know.
you're lucky
God.
because I mean, imagine margaritas, and I know the stories. I mean, I have friends that went to the college
I know the
in the
stories.
house
Yep.
in Cozumel, and it's like you're done for the day at 5 o'clock or 6, whatever, and the house is literally on the water. So you just jump on the
all,
pool, you jump on the
all the
ocean.
other photographers, they show up already tanned, and they know the equipment, and they know uniforms.
Exactly,
And I
exactly.
do, and my uniform don't even fit me, and I have no idea what
Yeah.
to do with the camera, and I'm like, my floor is moving under me, and, and I'm tired, and
Our
I'm
pets are
lost.
falling off.
Oh God, this was like, yeah,
Oh
we
man.
had different experience, you and I, from the
Yeah,
beginning. But
right,
let me
right.
ask you, because it's interesting because you, unlike me, you had this 2 weeks of college to adjust on the ship life. But I start working immediately. But how
Hmm.
long
And
when you
that's
went
exactly how it. Yeah, one.
when you went to your first assignment assigned ship? Did you already feel comfortable like around ships, or was it like
Well, let me
again
tell
brand
you
new?
something that happened to me again with my lucky experience. I don't know what happened, but I ended up getting a different position
On the same ship?
after 1 week of college on the same, not on the same ship, but it's a different position. So
Hmm.
I'll tell you the story on the next interview or the
Okay.
next
Episode,
podcast,
yeah, podcast,
because
right?
on the next episode, yeah, because I
Mhm.
mean it was something that I wasn't expecting, and to my luck, it's what made it and is still to this day the best job and the coolest job I've ever had in my life. So we'll leave it
Oh,
for the
okay.
next one.
We're gonna talk about the like positions and jobs on the ship. Like one episode, we're
Hmm.
just gonna dedicate to so for our listeners to know. We're planning to cover like different areas because apparently we have so much to tell. So there's not enough time to cover like everything in one. So we're gonna make this like a series. And so we're gonna talk exclusively about our jobs and ships in general, like on one
Hmm.
episode.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, because I mean, the first experience is it's usually the most the one with the most impact and the funniest one, because everything is new to you. Everything is an eye opener, especially for somebody that's never been on a cruise ship, even as a
Okay.
guest. So
Yeah.
everybody, every single crew member will have the same experience. You miss home immediately, even though I live 30 minutes away, but then again, you're still away from your family no matter what. You're on a ship. You learn that you can't just get off the ship and go home and like, oh, what do you mean? Like, no, you have this, you have classes, you have all this training. So it's an experience that no matter who you are or where you come from, you're gonna experience that right off the bat. I mean, for me, it was exciting, and I'm sure, and scary at the same time, because you're like, oh my god, like I'm in a moving a vessel, and it's a huge building, and it's shocking for a lot of people.
Well,
And
yeah,
again, it's also
I'm
not
gonna.
for everybody. For me, I was with a smile from ear to ear from the moment I stepped on board, even though I was already kind of in trouble because I was late. And the staff captain was like, "Why are you late?" I was like, "Oh, because there's a there's a concert going on. It's super cool." It's like,
Yeah, you don't
and
even know
with a
what
serious
staff
face.
captain is, right? You don't even
I
know
didn't
like
know,
what
like,
to
he
like.
was in the elevator with me, and I looked at
Right.
his name, and for the most
It
part,
doesn't mean
most
anything to you,
people from the bridge are Italian. So I said, "Staff captain, like what kind of staff? Like you like a bunch of
right?
stuff?" It's like he's like, and he looked at me with a serious face, like, "I'm the second in command." I'm like,
This is like
"Oh
second in
crap."
command, correct? Right on the
And of
entire
course,
ship.
I don't know what the hierarchy or the level. I mean, I know the captain, and then what falls under that. You have
Yeah,
this whole diagram of like, okay, captain, hotel
I was
director,
thinking like
and
second
everything
captain or
below.
something. I didn't even know the terminology. Right? Staff captain.
Yeah,
I'm like, yeah,
and
staff
I
captain
thought it
doesn't
it
sound
it said,
very
like, stuff.
important,
What kind of stuff? I know, it's like, "Oh, cool," like, "Hey, listen, I have this training, where do I go?" It's like, and he just shakes his hand like, "It's down the, deck 4," and I'm like, "Okay, cool. Nice meeting you, whatever your name is."
hmm.
So, I mean, that's something that I learned right after I told, like, "I met this guy, the staff captain." Is like, "Dude, that's, like, the second in command." I'm like, "Oh, shoot." Like, I just made a bad impression, I'm sure. So, I mean, again, like that's stuff we can talk about too, like as far as language on board, and who's who, and what positions that we have on board.
Right. But well, okay, okay. Let's talk. Let's leave something for the next. I mean, we're not done with this beginning on the ships, right? So you have to share a few more fun stories. I
Right.
have
So
some scary stories. I
I'll
know
start talking
this.
about I'll start sharing about after we started doing the college, and how I ended up doing a different position after a week that I started working
Yeah, you changed the
going to the
position.
college. So.
same as myself.
I mean, they offered
So
me a
yeah, yeah,
different
we're gonna.
position
This is
within
just
a
the
week,
beginning.
and that's just the beginning, yeah, and the rest, like they say, it's history. So we'll talk about that on the next recording, on the next podcast. And
Episode podcast,
Jolly,
right?
anything else?
Mm.
Episode, yeah. So
No, that's yeah, yeah. This is well, that's it. That's it. I mean, for this time, you guys let us know. I mean, I hope people will listen to this and people find this interesting, at least half as much as we do, talking about this.
yeah,
And
and any questions you guys have, you can leave them in the comments, and we'll
you
be
can leave
sure
it
to
anywhere.
answer
Any
to the best of our
we will
knowledge.
anywhere where you find this podcast and where you listen to this, you can just leave the comment and and we're gonna have in the future some people join us from our that we know that also worked on the ships in our conversations, and they will
Absolutely.
share
And
their
even guests too,
experience.
you know, guests that have no idea what it's like to for crew, like what we do and how we
That's going to be
live and
interesting to hear.
where's home. So, and also expectations or experiences that some guests, you know, regular guests may have had with the crew or staff, you know. So we'll leave that for future
We have
episodes.
a lot of interesting, and I promise you guys, we have a lot of interesting things to share with you, and interesting
Stories. Oh my gosh.
stories and funny stories and everything. This was just the beginning, and so please, yes, let us know what you think. We hope you enjoy our little show, our little episode, and our little talk with Jimmy and myself. And yeah, so are we gonna say goodbye for now?
Yeah. Goodbye for now. We'll see you later.
See you later, guys. Bye.